I didn't go to the party looking for trouble. I went because my wife, Stephanie, insisted. "It'll be fun," she had said, slipping on her dress, checking herself in the mirror for the 5th time. "You never come out with me anymore." I didn't argue. Lately, that's all we'd been doing. Arguing. Or worse, existing in silence, avoiding whatever was brewing under the surface. I wasn't stupid. I knew something was off. Stephanie had changed. She'd become more distant, spending more time on her phone, stepping outside to take calls, making plans without me. At first, I told myself I was overthinking it. Stress from work, maybe. A rough patch. But then there were the late nights, the unexplained absences, the way she'd pull away when I tried to hold her. Still, I pushed it down. Held on to the hope that maybe we just needed a night like this. Something light, something fun. The party was at her coworker's house. Fancy place, the kind with vaulted ceilings and a backyard that looked like something out of a luxury travel ad. I grabbed a drink, stuck by her side for a while, but at some point, I blinked and she was gone. I spotted her near the bar, laughing with a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, well-dressed, leaning in too close, and she was letting him. Something about it made my stomach turn. I wasn't the jealous type, I never had been. But this wasn't normal. Then, before I could even process it, I watched her take his hand, and he led her away. Just like that, I set my drink down. My hands were already shaking. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe they were just getting another drink or stepping outside for air. But every instinct in my body told me otherwise. So I followed them. I stayed far enough back that they wouldn't notice me, weaving through the crowd, my heart pounding. They slipped through a side door into the dimly lit hallway, then disappeared through another door, one that led to the upstairs rooms. That was when I knew. Something inside me cracked. I moved quickly, careful not to make a sound, stopping just outside the door they'd gone through. I could hear voices, muffled but urgent. I wasn't sure what I was about to walk into, but I knew one thing. I had to know the truth. And the truth? It was worse than I ever imagined. I stood outside the door, my pulse hammering in my ears. I could hear them talking. Stephanie's voice, hushed and tense, and his low and smooth. I couldn't make out the words at first, just the tone. But something about the way she spoke, like she was pleading, set my nerves on fire. I didn't want to be that guy, the paranoid husband, the jealous fool barging in on something harmless. But deep down, I already knew this wasn't harmless. So, I took a breath, steadied myself, and pushed the door open. Stephanie was standing close to him, too close. He was holding something, a small envelope, and she looked like she'd just been caught committing a crime. Her eyes went wide when she saw me, and she quickly took a step back, shoving the envelope into her purse. "Mark," she said, her voice unnaturally high. "What are you doing here?" "What am I doing here?" I repeated, stepping into the room. Maybe the better question is, what the hell are you doing? She let out a nervous laugh, shaking her head like I was overreacting. "It's not what it looks like." That sentence. That damn sentence. The universal anthem of cheaters everywhere. The man, some guy I'd never seen before, didn't look the least bit guilty. In fact, he had this smug, knowing expression, like he had some inside joke I wasn't part of. "Who is this?" I asked, keeping my voice steady, though my hands were clenched into fists. Stephanie hesitated for half a second too long. "He's just a friend," she finally said. "A friend." I laughed bitterly. "A friend that you sneak off with at a party? A friend who hands you envelopes like we're in some kind of drug deal?" She swallowed hard. "It's complicated, Mark." I turned to the guy, locking eyes with him. "You want to explain it, then? Because my wife clearly won't." The guy just smirked, like he had nothing to lose. "I think you already know, man," he said, his voice calm, like he was talking to a child. That set me off. I lunged before I could stop myself, shoving him back against the wall. He barely flinched, just raised his hands in mock surrender. "Relax," he said. You're only going to make this worse for yourself. I forced myself to step back. I wanted to hit him. I really did. But I needed to know the truth more than I needed to break his nose. I turned back to Stephanie, breathing hard. What's in the envelope? She pressed her lips together, gripping her purse like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Stephanie. My voice was quieter now, but sharper. Show me what's in the envelope. She didn't move, so I did. I reached forward and yanked the purse from her hands before she could react. She gasped, lunging for it, but I stepped back and ripped it open, pulling out the envelope. My fingers trembled as I tore it open, pulling out the contents. It took me a second to process what I was looking at. Photos, dozens of them. My wife, with this man, in different places, different outfits. Some were taken in broad daylight, in public. Some were far more intimate, taken in hotel rooms, capturing moments I was never supposed to see. Each one was a dagger straight to my heart. I stared at them, my mind blank. Then I looked at her. Her face had gone pale, her mouth opening and closing like she was searching for words that wouldn't come. I exhaled slowly, my whole body numb. How long? I finally asked. She didn't answer, so I asked again. How long, Stephanie? She let out a shaky breath. A few months, she whispered. A few months. I felt like an idiot, like my entire marriage had been some kind of joke, and I was the only one who didn't get the punchline. The room was spinning, my heartbeat roaring in my ears. But through it all, one thought kept repeating in my head, over and over. This is the end. I stood there, gripping the photos so tightly my knuckles turned white. My wife had been sneaking around behind my back for months. With him. Some smug bastard who didn't even have the decency to look guilty. Stephanie took a shaky step forward, reaching out like she could somehow undo what I'd just seen. Mark, please. I flinched back before she could touch me. Don't you dare. She froze, her hand hovering in the air before she let it fall to her side. Her lips were trembling, her eyes glassy, but I wasn't about to fall for it. Not this time. Why? My voice came out rough, barely above a whisper. You owe me that much. She hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything I needed to know. There wasn't a good reason. There never is. Was it just for fun? I asked, my voice shaking with rage. Some stupid thrill? Or did you actually think this meant something? She swallowed, wiping at her eyes. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. Oh yeah? How was it supposed to happen, Stephanie? Were you planning to tell me? Or were you just hoping I'd never find out? She didn't answer. The silence between us was suffocating. The man, her man, finally spoke up, arms crossed over his chest. Look, man, you found out. Sucks, I get it. But let's not turn this into a big scene. That was it. That was the moment I lost whatever shred of control I had left. I moved so fast he didn't have time to react. 1 second, he was standing there all smug and self-satisfied. The next, he was doubled over, gasping for breath as I drove my fist into his stomach. He staggered back, knocking over a chair, coughing. Mark, stop! Stephanie shrieked, grabbing my arm, but I shook her off. A big scene, I snarled, towering over him as he clutched his stomach. You sleep with another man's wife for months, and then have the nerve to act like I'm the problem? He straightened, glaring at me, but there was something else in his eyes now. Fear. Good. I should break your damn jaw, I said, my fist still clenched, my whole body trembling with rage. But you're not even worth it. I turned back to Stephanie, my pulse pounding. And you? I said, my voice quieter now, but sharper than ever. I loved you. I built a life with you. And this is what you did to me. Tears were streaming down her face now. Mark, please, I shook my head. Save it. Then, I turned and walked out the door. I didn't care who saw me. Didn't care about the whispers, the looks of pity or judgment from the people downstairs. I just kept walking out of that house, out of that nightmare. out of my marriage. But I wasn't done yet, because if she thought I was just going to disappear quietly, she had no idea who she was dealing with. I drove home in silence. No music, no distractions. Just the dull roar of the road beneath my tires and the storm raging inside my head. My hands were still shaking on the wheel. I wasn't sure if it was from anger, heartbreak, or the sheer adrenaline of what had just happened. Maybe all of it. Stephanie hadn't followed me. She hadn't called. Maybe she was still at the party, explaining to him why her husband had almost knocked him out. Or maybe she was just letting it sink in that she'd been caught. Either way, I didn't care, because I wasn't going to be the fool who let this slide. By the time I pulled into our driveway, my mind was already racing. I needed a plan. I needed to hit her where it hurt, and that started with making sure she had nowhere to hide. I unlocked my phone and opened our shared cloud account, the one she clearly thought I was too clueless to check. There they were, the photos, the ones that had been in the envelope, along with more, dozens of them dating back at least 6 months. Some were selfies they had taken together. Some were screenshots of their messages. I clicked one and read, "Can't wait to see you tonight. He's so clueless." I exhaled slowly. Clueless. That's what I was to her. Some idiot sitting at home while she paraded around with another man, thinking she was untouchable. Not anymore. I quickly downloaded every single file and backed them up. Then, I did something that made my heart pound harder than when I'd caught them together. I sent a few of the photos to myself from her account, just enough to make my point. Then, I typed out a simple message and hit send. To Stephanie. Since you love sharing memories, I thought I'd help you out. You have until tomorrow morning to be out of my house. Don't try to call. We're done. Then I blocked her number. Let her sit with that. I wasn't done yet. I scrolled through my contacts until I found her parents. Her very traditional parents, who adored me and had always thought their daughter married a good man. I attached a couple of the milder photos, just enough to tell the story, and added a message. To Stephanie's mom and dad. I thought you should know why your daughter and I are getting divorced. Ask her for the details. She seems to like keeping secrets. I didn't hesitate before hitting send. Petty? Maybe. But after what she'd done, I didn't care. I sat back, staring at my screen, my heart pounding. Now all I had to do was wait for the storm to hit. It didn't take long. Stephanie's number was blocked, but that didn't stop her from trying. My phone lit up with a dozen missed calls from unknown numbers, her desperate attempts to reach me. I ignored them all. Then her mother called. I let it ring once before answering. Mark. Her voice was already shaking. Please tell me this isn't real. Oh, it's real, I said, my voice cold. Check the timestamps. This wasn't some one-time mistake. This was planned. Over and over again. A choked sound came through the line. Maybe a sob. We had no idea. She never. I let out a bitter laugh. Yeah, neither did I. I don't know what to say, she whispered. This isn't the daughter I raised. I didn't have an answer for that. I wasn't looking for apologies. I just wanted her to feel what I had felt. She's going to need somewhere to stay, I said flatly, because she's not staying here. I could hear her mother sucking in a sharp breath, stunned by how calm I sounded. But that was the thing, I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. There was a long pause. Then, in a quiet voice, she said, I understand. That was the end of the conversation. Stephanie was about to lose more than just a husband. And then the real fallout began. By the time morning rolled around, I had already packed up her things. Every piece of clothing, every piece of jewelry I had ever bought her. I didn't throw them away. I wanted her to see them, to feel the weight of everything she lost. At 8:32 a.m., she showed up at the house, banging on the door. Mark, open the door. I didn't. I watched from the window as she paced outside, her hair a mess, her eyes swollen from crying. When I finally opened it, I didn't say a word. Just stepped aside and pointed to the suitcases stacked neatly by the door. Her lip trembled. Please, can we just talk? I crossed my arms. What's there to talk about? She sniffled. I made a mistake. I arched an eyebrow. Which part? The cheating? The lying? Or calling me clueless to your little boyfriend? Her face crumpled. I didn't mean that. But you said it. I cut in. And now you have to live with it. Her shoulders shook. She looked around the house, like she was taking in just how final this was. Maybe she thought I'd scream. Maybe she thought I'd break down, beg her to stay. But there was nothing left to say. You should go, I said simply. She let out a sob, covering her face with her hands. I never wanted to lose you. I clenched my jaw, fighting back the sharp sting in my chest. Then you shouldn't have thrown me away. She looked up at me then, really looked at me. Maybe for the first time since all of this started, she understood. I wasn't the same man who walked into that party. I was the man walking away. And this time she was the one left behind. The door shut behind her with a finality that echoed through the empty house. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the suitcases sitting on the porch. She didn't move at first, just stood there, shoulders shaking, staring at the ground like maybe, just maybe, if she stood there long enough, I'd change my mind. I didn't. Eventually, she picked up the bags, one by one, and loaded them into the back of her car. She kept glancing back at the house, as if she was trying to etch every detail into her memory. Maybe she was realizing that she had everything. A husband who loved her, a home, a life. And now she had nothing but a car full of regrets. I didn't watch her leave. I locked the door, turned around, and let her become my past. The divorce papers came fast. I wasn't about to drag this out. I filed within a week, listing infidelity as the reason.
No negotiations, no compromises.
She didn't contest it. Maybe she knew she had no ground to stand on. A few mutual friends reached out, mostly offering awkward condolences, trying to figure out which side they should be on. I made it easy for them. I didn't ask anyone to choose. I just walked away. Stephanie's family? They were mortified. I don't know what kind of conversations happened behind closed doors, but I do know one thing. She lost their respect. And that probably hurt more than anything I could have said to her. The other guy, oh, he got his share of karma. Turns out he wasn't just some random fling, he was engaged. His fiancée found out, and let's just say, her revenge was worse than mine. She exposed everything, the affair, the photos, the messages. She sent them to his boss, his friends, his family. The guy lost his job, lost his engagement, lost everything in the blink of an eye. I didn't even have to lift a finger. And me? I rebuilt. It wasn't easy, but it was simple. I cut her out completely, blocked her everywhere, focused on myself. Hit the gym, spent time with people who actually cared about me. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. People always say revenge is best served cold. But I think the best revenge is moving on. And that's exactly what I did.